the second year in a row, I headed out on a wild adventure in the mountains of Norway in pursuit of wild reindeer. It was in these mountains that I created my first ever YouTube video a little over a year ago. Now, I was in for yet another brute endeavour, this time in the company of my good friend Jonas. We started our hike in the darkness of the winter night as the moon drifted in and out of sight behind the fast-moving clouds. With our heavy backpacks, the deep snow and the steeply sloped terrain, I was slightly worried we might have been too ambitious with our planned route. As we ascended out of the alpine forest and up onto the plateau, the snow was slightly more hard-packed, but the wind was all the more relentless. With gusts exceeding 100 kilometers an hour, we had to lean into the wind so as not to lose our balance. After battling the winds, hills and snow for several hours, we finally made it to a shallow depression in the terrain, providing some shelter from the worst of the weather. By the time we'd set up camp, eaten our dinner and tucked ourselves into our sleeping bags, it was already long past midnight. We had just a handful of hours to charge up before the real adventure began. At the crack of dawn, we strapped on our snowshoes and started hiking. Every couple of minutes, we would stop to scan the terrain with our binoculars, covering as much ground as possible.
Walking across this endless expanse of white is absolutely magical. I'm in awe of its beauty.
The clouds, the colours, the landscape and the light were all stunning, but we were here for wildlife, and so far, the only sign of life we'd found was some old fox tracks. After 2 hours trudging through the snow, we came across our first sign of the wild reindeer's existence, some old droppings and tracks. But for all we knew, the reindeer could be many miles away by now. Reindeer are known for their nomadic nature, traversing enormous areas in constant search of better grazing. In fact, previously, 4 enormous herds of wild reindeer ranged all across southern Norway, migrating long distances following the seasons. However, due to the construction of roads, railroads, settlements and other human activities, their range has now been fragmented and limited to 24 smaller regions with each their secluded population. On top of this, more and more of their already restricted areas are shrinking due to human interests such as cabins and ski resorts. Following the tracks, Jonas soon spotted a strange stick peeking up from the snow. Some digging later and the stick revealed itself to be a reindeer antler. To conserve energy through the winter, the reindeer bulls shed their antlers and spend the spring and summer regrowing a new set for the rutting season. The antler we found submerged by the snow had several scars and broken off pieces, testaments to this bull's tough fights for the rights to breed. Since the tracks were a couple of days old, it was virtually impossible to interpret the direction they were heading. We hiked up to a vantage point to scan over the area, and when we saw the tracks disappearing into nothingness many kilometers away, we decided it was probably best to turn around and try our luck elsewhere. It only took us a handful of kilometers before we came across fresher looking tracks, but yet again we struggled to determine their direction as they seemed to disappear into thin air. Although we didn't talk about it, it was obvious that the both of us were struggling to keep our heads high, as it was becoming more and more apparent that our chances of finding the reindeer were slim. We'd been hiking around for many hours and scanned over immense expanses of tundra, yet we hadn't seen a single living creature. On a brief water break, I pointed out a peak on the horizon and suggested to make that our final checkpoint. We agreed that if we didn't see anything from there, we would have to turn back to base camp empty-handed. With our last bit of stamina and motivation soon running out, we made it to the top of the peak.
After 15 kilometres of
There below us, there were two separate herds with a combined total of several hundred wild reindeer. It's safe to say that we were two happy photographers when we finally realized that all our efforts would not be in vain. But the light was running out as the sun crept ever closer to the horizon. We swiftly made our way down towards the closest herd, and since we didn't have the time to put on a stalk, we admired them from a safe distance.
the long hike and my sore and tired legs are all forgotten when this view is right in front of me.
The shifting clouds and changeable light created beautiful and unique photo opportunities with a magical foreground of the characteristic silhouettes of a wild reindeer. Darkness soon engulfed us, and it was time to start heading back to camp. With the bright moonlight guiding our way, we didn't need our head torches and could truly take in the natural beauty of the winter night. The next morning, I would have to continue solo. Unfortunately, due to large blisters and sore legs, Jonas decided to stay behind and rest up before I returned to civilization later that evening. I was determined to get the most out of my time in the mountains, so as dawn was breaking, I headed back in the direction where we'd seen the reindeer yesterday. Halfway there, I spotted movement on the horizon. To my great surprise, it turned out to be a lone female reindeer. Reindeer are herd animals and should not be alone, especially at this time of year. This, as well as her lack of fear towards me, gave me my reasons to believe she was sick and probably wouldn't survive the winter. So, I quickly snapped my portraits and left her alone. As the sun rose behind me, I ventured on in pursuit of the large herds I'd seen yesterday. Now that I knew where to look, it didn't take me long to relocate them. Using the uneven terrain to my advantage, I made sure to never silhouette myself and was able to stalk them up close. Then, I lay down and waited. Due to the direction of the wind, the reindeer eventually picked up my scent and wandered off into the mountains. Wild reindeer live a life on the edge, so repeated disturbances can lead to excessive energy waste, reduced body weight, and thus poorer conditions to survive the long cold winter. Therefore, to avoid pressuring them, I decided to leave and rather try my luck with a smaller herd I'd spotted yesterday. From my position, I couldn't see the other herd, so I hiked on in pursuit of a viewpoint. From the second hill I ascended, I spotted a herd of about 50 individuals somewhere around 2 kilometers away. So with a determined stride, I continued walking in their direction. However, due to the wind pelting me with snow, visibility was so reduced that I didn't see the reindeer before they were all of a sudden no more than 30 meters from me. They were briefly startled by my close and unforeseen appearance, but as I slowly backed away, they soon settled down again. I sat myself down a little further away and started shooting. I experimented with backlights to highlight the powerful winds blowing the snow across the tundra. My goal all along was to document the extreme resilience and hardiness of these nomads of the north, so this was exactly what I came here for. Seeing the reindeer lay down to rest right in front of me was a testament to their acceptance of my presence. I felt honoured as they went about their daily routines completely ignoring me. But what happened next would absolutely blow me away. Moments before the evening sun dipped below the horizon, the reindeer became curious. They came right towards me, showing no sign of fear. I stood there in awe of this remarkable scene unfolding right in front of me, and I knew for a fact that no image would be able to do justice to this unforgettable experience. For a few moments, I just had to put my camera down to truly take it all in. But in the end, I did manage to take some photos, and here are my favourites. waved goodbye to the wild reindeer with an enormous gratitude to the mountains and its wild inhabitants, and for the magical moments I'd experienced with them the past 48 hours. Before me now, I had a 10-kilometer moonlit hike back to camp, then down the mountains and back to civilization.